Welcome to Midnight Mule FPL. I am Midnight Mule and this is the video for Game Week 2 where we look at the popular players. Now in FPL, if you get a good rank, you're probably going to do well in your mini league. You may even win it. And there are two basic things that affect how much you move in your mini league. The first one is if you can pick differentials that do well, then you will go up quite a lot. So a differential is somebody who's lowly owned. The other side of the coin is if there's a highly owned player that you don't have and they do well, you're going to go down a lot and that's going to negatively affect you. Now there are loads and loads and loads of differentials, so to try and pick some that are going to do well is actually quite difficult. But when it comes to the highly owned players, of course there's far fewer. So all we need to do is think about the highly owned players and consider which ones we can risk not owning, and then we can own somebody else instead. Hopefully that roughly made sense. If it made no sense, don't worry. I'm just going to talk about a few players and hopefully you might get something interesting out of this video. We're going to start with a chart to quickly see who the popular players are. Across the x-axis we have the ownership percentage and then the y is the price. So the most popular player at the time recording globally is Cole Palmer. He's around 60% owned. And there are two others you'll see that are well over the 50% mark. That's João Pedro and Salah. These are all slightly over 50%. And what that means is if everybody who owns them captain them, but you don't, their points will go slightly against you, even if you own them. Whereas somebody down here, so Verts, for example, he's down to 29.5 and he's falling. If you own him and everyone else who owned him captain him, but you don't, you're still going to get points effectively if he gets points. But any of these three, if they're highly captained, they're going to work against you. However, the captaincy this week is going to be quite split. So the chances are they're not going to be working against you at all. So important players are Palmer, Salah and João Pedro. João Pedro is falling, but Salah is rising. I think Palmer's going down a bit. And then over here, very expensive is Haaland. He may well be the fourth most popular player come the weekend. The other possibility would be Reinders. Who's there? There he is. There's Reinders. So purple is strikers, just to give you an idea of where the popularity is. Yellow is midfielders. Blue is defenders. So the most popular defender is still Frimpong. He's falling. Next most popular is Van de Ven. But the importance of saying that is none of these are going to massively hurt you unless they do really, really well. These three over here are going to hurt you if you don't own them and they do well. And as the season goes on, we're going to find there's more players going towards the right of the screen, and that's because the template's getting much stronger. When it comes to goalkeepers, I've got the most popular keeper as Sanchez. It's actually Dubravka, but I've marked him down quite a lot because he's going to be on the bench for most people. However, I know some managers are intending to play Dubravka this week. There he is down there. So I've put him at about 20% ownership. It's much higher than that, but I've put him as that because a lot of managers will bench him, but some will play him because he's playing Sunderland. We're now going to look at the players starting with the goalkeepers. And there's not much to say about the goalkeepers because if you've got a playing keeper, you may as well keep them. The only reason to change your goalkeeper is if they're injured and your keeper won't be injured, or if they get suspended, none are suspended, or if you're playing a wild card or a free hit. So I'll try and be quite quick with the keepers. Raya, allowing for the upcoming fixtures and his popularities, probably the most important goalkeeper, but he's not going to hurt your rank. None of these are going to be hurting your rank much, unless they get a clean sheet and save a penalty and then get an assist or something. But even that's not going to massively hurt your rank. And then we have Sanchez. So Sanchez is higher owned, but he's not expected to score as highly this week as Raya is. But overall, over the next few weeks, these are quite close with the damage they could cause you. But I think Sanchez may cause you a bit more damage if he does all right, but Ray is the better keeper. That may sound counterintuitive. If you could have one of these keepers, Ray is the one that's worth having. And the expected points, by the way, if you can see those, are from Solio Analytics. There'll be a link in the description below. It's a great fun website to play with and look at different things to do with your team, and they can help play on your team. And then Becker, good keeper, away to Newcastle. Should be a very feisty affair because, of course, the whole Isak thing that's going on. If I had 5.5 to spend on a keeper at the moment, I'd be going for Raya though, not Becker. Sales 5 million, not much between Sales and Sanchez, but because Sanchez is a lot more popular, I'd be going for Sanchez. Sanchez's next 4 fixtures, it's feasible he could get a clean sheet in any of those. With Sales, one of the games is away to Arsenal, so that one's going to be tough. So Kelleher's the most popular 4.5 million keeper, and if that's all you've got to spend, he's an alright one to get. Nothing special there. I wouldn't expect much, particularly from him. Pickford, as a player, I really like him, but when they played Leeds on Monday, they were awful. All of them. Every Everton player seemed to be really bad. If you've got Pickford, absolutely don't sell him unless you're wildcarding or free hitting. He is a lot of fun, but maybe it's going to take a while for Everton to get back to their good defensive ways. They only let in 1 goal and it was a penalty. Henderson, 5 million. I wouldn't be buying him for Crystal Palace because I'd rather have Sanchez and I'd probably rather have Sales. But Palace are a good outfit at the moment. He's all right if you got him. There's no problem. Vicario for 5 million. He's very lowly owned now. Spurs defensively should be better this year than last season, but they're away to Man City, so you wouldn't be buying him this week. And then for Bruggen, 4.5 million, very lowly owned. And then Dubravka, I've made him a banker. That means you really should have him. Obviously, if you've not got him, don't use a transfer to get him in. But he's a playing keeper at 4 million. So most weeks he can just sit on your bench. Some managers are going to play in this game week. He's home to Sunderland. But we'll look at that later when we look at the benching order. So defenders, Gabriel. If you're wildcarding or indeed free hitting, I think Gabriel's worth getting. It's not worth spending a transfer to get him in. However, 2 of the next 4 fixtures are good, and soon after that, the fixtures remain good for Arsenal. So worth getting in, but only if you're using a wildcard or a free hit. If you've got him, that's great, absolutely worth keeping. So Virgil van Dijk, Liverpool defensively weren't great against Bournemouth, but maybe Bournemouth are going to be good attacking this season. So I wouldn't go out and buy Virgil van Dijk, but equally, without using a card, I wouldn't be selling Virgil van Dijk for anyone this game week. The only reason to sell him now that I've said that is if you're freeing up some funds to buy somebody else you really wanted elsewhere, but then that's going to be a hit. So it's unlikely I'm going to say that's going to be a good move. Pretty much game week 2, unless you've got issues, it's not worth probably making any transfers, which probably means you're going to want to switch off the video now, but we'll keep going anyway. So Saliba, not expected to score as many points as Gabriel. So if you're going to get one, Gabriel's the one you want to get, but Saliba's perfectly fine. Cucurella, nice and attacking. Chelsea, okay, they were 0-0, I think, with Palace it was. But he's a good attacking defender. There should be some clean sheets coming along. Perfectly good player to have. And these are all 6 million defenders at the moment. Ait-Nouri, another 6 million. He's good, and if we know he's going to play, and Gvardiol's injured, so it's highly likely he's going to get game minutes, he's also very good. And then the first 5.5, Pedro Porro, nice and attacking. Now, you wouldn't go buying him this game week because he's away to Man City. But if you've got him, he's fine to have. Personally, I've got him, and I'm intending to play him. But I know about half the managers online seem to be implying at least that they're going to be benching him and playing maybe a Burnley defender, which I think is crazy, playing Burnley over a Tottenham defender like Pedro Porro. But there we have, that's them. So Esteve for Burnley, you're hardly ever going to play him, but if you're wildcarding or free hitting, he's all right to get. He's only 4 million, home to Sunderland this game week. There's a chance, a reasonable chance, they might get a clean sheet. But Sunderland did get 3 goals earlier in the week, or last week rather, and it is still Burnley, and they have lost their keeper. So he's all right to get, but because he's nice and cheap, great bench fodder after this game week, totally worth getting if you're wildcarding. No way is it worth getting him if you're not using a card though. So Wan-Bissaka, West Ham were awful. I think it was West Ham that played Sunderland. They were very poor, but maybe they'll turn things round in the very near future. If not, somebody like Wan-Bissaka is just going to plummet in popularity and get dumped out of people's teams. But if West Ham can get their act together, he's probably going to be all right. But this game week they're playing Chelsea, so pretty good chance they're going to be letting in goals there. Frimpong, he's not marked as injured at the moment, but he did go off apparently with a tight hamstring on Friday, game week 1. Absolutely don't go buying him. And if you find out he's injured come the weekend and you're relying on him, then you could swap him for Gabriel if you haven't got him, or Cucurella, Ait-Nouri, Pedro Porro. Any of those would be all right. I wouldn't swap him for Esteve though, unless you've got other good defenders you can play on the other game weeks. And then Van de Ven, 4.5 million. I can understand people benching him this game week in favour of a Burnley defender, but I wouldn't do Pedro Porro personally. It's still the case that none of the defenders, like the goalkeepers, none of them are massively highly owned, so you don't need to fear any defender doing well, so don't go panic buying one of them in. They're not going to hurt your rank if you don't own them. Second page of defenders, Munoz, very good defender, some nice fixtures, Forest, Villa, Sunderland, West Ham. He's got chance of attacking returns, chance of defensive clean sheets. Perfectly good player to have. If you've got him, that's great. And I think some people are going to move from Pedro Porro to Munoz in the next few weeks. Or if you had Frimpong and we find out he is out for a while, you might want to move to Munoz, and that would be completely reasonable. Tarkowski said Everton were awful. He gave away a penalty, and there's some debate about whether or not it was a penalty or should have been a penalty. He gave away a penalty, but he did rack up 2 defensive contribution points. So he's still a solid pick. If you've got him, absolutely fine to keep. Personally, I wouldn't be buying him at the moment because Everton and West Ham were both awful. Murillo and Milenkovic, they're both good, 5.5 million. Not massively highly owned at the moment. They're not going to hurt your rank, but they're solid picks. Gay, 4.5 million. Obviously not as good as Munoz, but he's all right. Aynet and Williams, cheaper versions of Murillo and Milenkovic, probably aren't going to get as many points, but they're fine if you got them. Dorgu, 4.5. I would expect if he gets the minutes, he's going to be good. Diorf, probably better than Wan-Bissaka, but much lower owned, which is why he's much lower in this sheet here. So he's expected to get 2.6 points this week at home to Chelsea. Obviously, it won't be 2.6, but that's what the calculation is. His damage, if he gets 2.6 points and you don't own him, it's going to hurt you by 0.2, which is next to nothing, so you don't need to fear him. And then Konza, so don't go buying him because he's suspended for 1 game week, but if you've got him, he's absolutely fine to keep. And then a few more defenders. De Cooper for Brighton, perfectly good defender, bit attacking, he's fine to keep. And they nearly had a clean sheet game week 1. It was right at the end of the game they let in a goal. So I know he didn't get a clean sheet, but he nearly got a clean sheet. And then Goodmanson for Leeds, first choice, only 4 million. I think he got 9 points game week 1. Away to Arsenal, but if you ever had to play him, that's all right. You should get 1 or 2 points. And that's that. So in summary, keepers, defenders, none of them at the moment are going to hurt your rank. So you don't need to care too much about which ones of those you've got. For the midfielders, now we're going to hit a lot of greens. So Salah is a good player. He costs a lot, 14.5 million, expected to do well this game week. He's away to Newcastle, but he can find a way to score against anyone. He's going to hurt you if you don't own him. But it's not worth taking hits to get him in. Palmer's going to hurt you if he does well and you don't own him. Good player. So in the Premier League, he's been awful for the last several game weeks going back through last season. But he was good over the summer. So I know some managers are thinking we'll give him another week or 2. And if he's still poor, maybe we'll sell him and go for someone else. But he can hurt you if he does well. And he has a very high ceiling. We'd expect him some point in the next few game weeks to get a good score. That doesn't mean you have to hold on to him. But the main reason to keep him at the moment is he's highly owned. If he was lowly owned, he'd be absolutely fine to get rid of. Fernandes should get a good amount of solid points. Totally worth having. Saka should be very good this game week at home to Leeds. Then away to Liverpool. But then he's home again to Forest. Then he's got Man City. So Saka is a good player. And he's not very highly owned. So you don't need to fear him at all. Although anyone free hitting this week will be getting in Saka. Vert's very good player, but did nothing in game week 1, so he's getting dumped by a lot of people. But he's a good player, totally worth keeping hold of. Eze, so I've made him good soon. So if he stays at Palace, he's a very good player. If he goes to Spurs, he's a good player. And if he goes to Arsenal, which is the latest thing, he's a good player. However, is he going to play this weekend? What if a transfer happens Thursday or Friday? Will he be in the new team? I'm guessing not. Maybe we'll get to come off the bench. I don't know. So if you've got him, that's absolutely fine. You want to play him. If you were doing a wild card, you could get him in thinking long term you want him in your plans. But absolutely, I wouldn't be transferring him in just for a normal transfer. Semenyo, his popularity is going up a lot because he scored 2 goals at Anfield. So he looks like he's going to be good. Only 7.1 million. Totally good to have. Mbeumo looks like he's going to be very good. We know he was good last season at Brentford. It looks like he's going to be good at United too. So he's quite popular. And then Kudos, he did get a couple of assists. But it is Spurs and they're away to Man City, not expected to do much there. So I've not marked him as good. But if you've got him, he's a perfectly good player to keep hold of. If you're wildcarding, I probably personally wouldn't get him. I'd try and get other midfielders, but he's a perfectly good player. And then Rangers, I've not marked him as good simply because we don't know yet how good his minutes are going to be. If he gets 70 plus minutes every game week, he's totally worth having. But Pep Roulette, he could randomly get benched. If you've got him, that's great. If you want to get him in on a free transfer, that's all right. But you need to be aware you're taking a slight risk that he may not get loads of good minutes. So as you can see, there's lots of good midfielders to have. And having a quick scan of this, Salah, Palmer, they're going to hurt you the most. And then if Wirtz does well away to Newcastle, it's going to hurt you a bit. If Fernandes and Saka do well, that's going to hurt you a bit. The others, as things stand, aren't going to hurt you much. But Rangers is getting transferred in a lot, and he's probably going to keep getting transferred in a lot up to the deadline. So it may be, if Rangers does really well, he is going to hurt this game week if you don't own him. But maybe another million managers yet would have to buy him for that to be the case. Second page of midfielders. So Tielemans, quite lowly owned, but perfectly good player. Only 6 million. He wasn't a lot of my drafts. I'd be absolutely fine to keep him. Villa weren't great game week 1, but they could turn it around. They were awful game week 1 a couple of seasons ago too. So Ndaya, Everton were awful. Totally don't buy him. He's totally not worth it. If you've got him, keep hold of him for now. He's not worth transferring out. Maybe he'll come good. But I wouldn't recommend getting any Everton players at the moment. Rice, good player at home to Leeds. You probably want to spend your money elsewhere. But if you've got him or you want to buy him, I think he's a perfectly good player to have. But any of these on the screen now, if they do well and you don't own them, they're not going to hurt your rank. Anderson should pick up some good solid points, not going to hurt your rank. Dewsbury Hall, Everton were poor, so he was poor. Let's see how he goes in the next few game weeks. For the forwards, Haaland, he's going to hurt your rank if he does well. Part of that's going to be a lot of managers who have Haaland are going to captain him. The only reason they wouldn't is if they had Haaland and Saka, possibly Haaland and Palmer, but I suspect most of those will go Haaland. So if you don't have Haaland and he does well, he's going to hurt your score a bit this game week. Absolutely not worth taking hits to bring him in though. So Goalkeepers, if he does well this game week, and he should get good minutes now that we know Havertz is injured, he's going to hurt your rank a bit if he does really well. If he just gets a goal, it's not going to massively hurt you. So Watkins, Villa were disappointing, but he's a good player. Mateta's a good player, not as popular as the other three on the screen. He's much less popular, but his popularity is growing. Ekiteke, his popularity is growing, and he did well last game week. So one or two of these over the next few game weeks is probably going to become very popular, but at the moment none of them are massively popular. João Pedro is popular, but I've not marked him as a good player because he was disappointing, as were Chelsea last game week. So if ownership wasn't a thing, it didn't make a difference to your score, he'd be the least one I'd be interested in on the page at the moment. However, if all the players got 10 points, he's the one that's going to hurt you the most at the moment because he's highly owned. Bowen, he's just a solid pick. He should keep picking up 4, 5, 6 points. Although he didn't do so well game week 1. West Ham didn't do very well. So Chris Wood, he got a couple of goals. You never know when he's going to get the goals. maybe, obviously he was a better choice than João Pedro for last game week. Definitely wouldn't be transferring him in, but if you've got him, that's absolutely fine. Even if I was wildcarding personally, I wouldn't bring him in. But if he grows massively in popularity, we're going to have to start thinking about getting him in. And then second page of forwards, Strand Larsen. These are cheaper forwards now. 6.5 million and below, he's by far the best forward to get. Should do quite well. And then Pyro 5.5. I don't know what sort of team would get him in. His minutes might not be great. And for like, he's just not worth he's not going to get enough points. He's just not worth having. If you've got him, okay, wait till your wild card, unless he starts doing really well. Not worth having, but he's on here because he's popular enough to be in the system. And then Mark Gray, we've still not got a picture of him for Sunderland. He's worth having if you've got 5 playing midfielders and 2 playing forwards. Because he's nice and cheap and he can sit on your bench. And occasionally he may come off the bench and get some points. And then the bench order, start with the goalkeepers. I suggest if you've got Raya, you play him at home to Leeds. My next choice would be Sanchez. You're unlikely to have Raya and Sanchez, but if you had them both, I'd be playing Raya. Next would be Dubravka. So at home to Sunderland, that's all right, and the goalkeeper's not so important. So I would play Dubravka at home to Sunderland, probably before Pickford at home to Brighton. And I think Dubravka is going to be played by more managers than Pickford as well. And then Becker away to Newcastle. Reasonable chance Newcastle are going to score there. Henson at home to Forest. Sales away to Palace. Kelleher at home to Villa. For Bragan, Vicario. We're now going to look at the other players, and I'll show them in the order that I think's best to worst, allowing for their expected points and their ownership and intuition. But if you want to order them just by expected points that you've seen on the previous slides, that's absolutely fine. That's completely valid. So Reinders, Goalkeepers, Fernandez, João Pedro, Mbuemo, Wirtz, Ekiteke, Wood, Bowen, Gabriel, Saliba, Rice, Ait-Nouri, Cucurella, Virgil van Dijk, Mateta, Eze, Strand Larsen, Tielemans, Munoz, Milenkovic, Murillo, Anderson, Tarkowski, Kudos, Frimpong, Pedro Porro. And then Ndiaye, Dewsbury Hall, Gahey, Williams, Aina, Dorgu, De Cooper, Estevez, Diouf. So I've got the Burnley defender all the way down here. I think managers online who are intending to play Burnley defender, I think they're going to have a defender on their bench that's likely to outscore him. But if you want to play him, that's fine. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. If I've got 3 defenders from bigger teams, I would just risk it and play them. Wan-Bissaka, Van de Ven, Goodmanson, Poirot, Mark Gay, Konza, who's suspended. And then regarding captaincy, there's a good choice this game week. But I think Saka, if you've got Saka, it's worth putting on him the old Mule hat. At home to Leeds, nearly everyone who's got Saka is going to captain him, but he's quite lowly owned. So if you've got him and you don't captain him, he's still going to get you points. He's still worth having. And then Haaland would be my second choice for captain. Now, I don't have these 2. I have Haaland. I'm probably going to captain Haaland. But these aren't the only 2. Palmer's an okay choice, apart from his recent track record in the Premier League. But away to West Ham have been very poor. Reasonable chance of getting some points there. And he is highly owned. And then we have Salah away to Newcastle. If I had Salah and Palmer and not Haaland or Saka, personally, I think I would probably captain Salah. But it's quite close. I think most managers online have been indicating they'd go with Palmer. And then Watkins away to Brentford could be fine. And Semenyo at home to Wolves. Any of those are fine for your captaincy choice. Any of those are fine for your vice captain. If you don't want to pick 2 of those, or you can't pick 2 of those, any of the green players in the previous several slides rather, they'd be absolutely fine. So going back to this chart, as a quick summary to all that video business, these are the 3 players that are going to hurt you. Palmer, Salah, João Pedro. If any of those do well and you don't own them, that's going to hurt your rank. And then Haaland's going to hurt you a bit. as real verts. And these ones down here, if they do well, Tielemans, Prero, he won't, Strand Larson, it really doesn't matter. And as the season goes on, we're going to get more bunched up here, and they're the ones we really need to think, can we afford to not have them in our team? There we have it, my thoughts for Game Week 2. Thank you very much for watching this far, if you got this far. Hopefully there was some value in there for you. I hope you have a nice Game Week 2 this weekend. Thanks, bye.